Welcome to the Mobile Workforce Podcast, where we sit down and have real conversations with business leaders that have been where you are. During these interviews, we'll dive into what it takes to improve systems and champion processes that maximize performance. Each week, our trailblazing guests share their experiences and understanding of the workforce to help inspire change, challenge our thinking, and share what it takes to successfully travel the road to profitability. Now here's our host, co-founder and chief evangelist of About Time and WorkMax, Mike Merrill.
Hello and welcome to the Mobile Workforce Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Merrill, and today we are sitting down with my good friend Tony Mary with ETHOSystems. Tony is the practice director over at ETHOSystems, and today we're going to talk about ERP solutions, accounting and payroll systems, and how those should be evaluated for modernization, and also what's happening in the market to best utilize those solutions. Thank you, Tony, for joining us today. Looking forward to the conversation.
Thanks, Mike. It's an honor to be here with you guys.
So I guess just to start right off the top, when do you think a company really needs to take a deeper look into the efficiency of their ERP, payroll, accounting system and determine if it's time to make a change?
Yeah, that's a good question. And honestly, I would say any time is a good time, generally speaking. But we kind of find what I call the three Ps. There's usually a pain that they're after, a price, or there's a pursuit. Something has changed that they're pursuing they don't have, otherwise known as a gap. So usually that's what we're seeing. But typically, companies are going through an evaluation about every 3 to 4 years at this point, evaluating software on average.
Okay, well, that's pretty frequently, and I know in the past that has not been the case. The old Timberline systems you would see in there for 20 plus years, and I think the tide has changed there. But tell us a little bit more about that. Why every 3 or 4 years?
Yeah, I think that, and you're absolutely correct. The buying cycle used to be double digits. So when I first started in the software business, which was just about a decade ago, everybody was 10 to 14 years on a life cycle. And maybe then they chose to stay on what they were currently using. Now, though, with the way the world is evolving with technology, with a competitive landscape of so many offerings being out there and available, and the ability of the SaaS, the whole as a service, whether I shouldn't even say SaaS, but something as a service, subscriptions, software, etc., those kind of things have actually enabled people to move a little bit faster and a little bit more freely than they were before, because now once they're in the cloud, they feel that they have a path of least resistance versus now I have to take care of the hardware, the intranet, all the local stuff, as well as the software, as well as the training. So I think just the evolution of technology finally coming into the construction market with that SaaS environment has probably expedited that. And let's just be honest, in the past decade, we went through 2008 to 2011, 12, people recovered pretty cleanly without software. So without software, and now what we just experienced in the last couple of years is to be able to go work from home or work remotely, it forced the change on people. So faster than they were comfortable with, but they knew they had to.
That's a great point. So I think, so that quote unquote crowbar that kind of budged things loose has really opened up the conversation, you'd say. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And also it's cyclical. So we're seeing companies that came around, let's say 3-4 years ago, that are on paper timesheets or still doing AP invoices on paper and manila folders. And 3 years ago, maybe the price was too high, the software was too complex, they were confused. And now they're coming back around for the same functionality people have been shopping for the last 20 years. So we're seeing adopters of new technology for them that's been old in the marketplace, like digital time cards, digital AP invoice processing. And for them, it's still revolutionary and brand new, even though for someone like us, it's kind of almost antiquated process now. So we're seeing a big chunk of our clients getting more technology forward in a slower adoption, but
interesting. So tell me this. In the past, obviously, there was resistance just for the sake of change or comfort, or whatever else. What should a company be doing to make the determination of whether it's time to switch, other than just the time period? Like, oh, it's been long enough now, maybe we should look.
Yeah, I would say there's a couple indicating factors that I always listen for when I'm talking to a company. A couple of those are how many things are they doing outside the system in Microsoft Office, whether that's Word and Excel. How many reporting processes take longer than it takes to have this conversation. If you have to run a report and come back in an hour and see if it's there, or if you have to monitor your system, anything where I believe multiple people are involved with moving a physical piece of paper. So whether that's a drawing, a timesheet, or anything, I think that's a point when you can say, okay, if multiple people are touching it, surely someone has thought of a software that could do it. So that's where I would start looking, at an opportunity to enhance. And that's even before getting into the actual ERP processes and multi companies or anything like that. But when and what, there's a lot of indicators there. But I would say anytime you start having to do anything outside your system and it doesn't feel right is an appropriate time to start looking and raising the questions.
Yeah, I like that when it doesn't feel right. That makes sense. So if you've had cause to pause, then maybe you should really spend a little more time and be more curious about that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You may have bought a manufacturing product for construction and they have jobs in cost codes. And it just, as I say, actually, I say it doesn't pass the sniff test. It just doesn't smell right. It it's there, it works, but it's not enough and it's not efficient. So, when your overhead starts increasing to manage a process, a single process, I think you have opportunities to investigate with software.
Yeah, that's a great point. So there's obviously, a lot of cost involved. I mean, systems can be expensive. Obviously, as you and I both know from our experience, sometimes putting the system in place is more costly than the actual software licenses or subscription itself, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So that being the case, how does a company determine the return on investment or the ROI for something like that so they feel comfortable from a financial standpoint making that decision and making the move?
Yeah, so that's always a good question as well, that we face a lot is, what is going to be the return on investment? And depending on the functionality in the case, whether it's replacing the whole ERP, maybe it's just replacing a payroll module, so a digital time capture, or maybe it's the payroll provider. So the ROI in that case could be, well, you have a reduction in overhead, being, just less people touching the paper, and the ROI could just be magnified by the hours spent. So that's a nice and easy one. But some of the other ones get a little more complex, that actually they're less complex than they sound. But the section 179 discounts, where they can write off the software, there's a tax benefit. And as we know, we've experienced it, people buy in cycles. When do they need to spend the money and when do they have no money to spend? And we all know when to take vacations. So for that. But yeah, the ROI by each product is going to be different, but most of the time it doesn't result in a reduction of staff. It results in an efficient use of your staff. So instead of chasing loose ends, they're actually tying knots on things all day. So instead of trying to assemble the rope, they already have it at the end and they're just putting a bow on it, so to speak. So the the ROIs can get pretty deep, and some of them, a recent client we had, the ROI was simply that they didn't have to double check their own numbers. That was it. Just they trusted their numbers. They didn't have to run a tape, and they were literally running tapes, not even in Excel. They were running tapes on their own numbers every month.
Yeah, that's a great point. And even from I'm a business owner, you're a business owner. I don't know if you can put a high enough value on peace of mind and confidence in your data, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And being being that the confidence needs to be there in your data, and that's where we really fall in, is we're a confidence booster as a business partner. Is we spend as much time as needed with anybody to make sure that even if it's they're replacing a functionality, that their confidence is going to happen and that the end result is actually better than what they hope for. So that's where I think, leading up into some other conversations we're having, is that working with someone that actually knows the ups and downs and has been in the role, like yourself and myself have been in those shoes, is really where our value and the return on investment comes in, is working with someone that is not in it for a financial gain.
Yeah, I love that. Trusted advisor is a great term that always speaks well to me, and I know people like to hear and view their partners that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So speaking of, I mean, you mentioned a couple, digital time capture. You mentioned AP, invoice and routing. What are some other things on the ERP or construction software solution landscape that you're seeing that are making a big impact today?
Yeah, to be honest, Mike, everything is up in the air. Everything is fair game now. From the ERPs, one of our clients we have builds in Colorado, builds in the mountains of Colorado, and also builds on a couple West Indies islands. So he's traveling back and forth and has a multi-currency need. Now, for him, he's been on Sage 300 forever. It was a natural progression for him to look at a cloud product. And fortunately, we are there to assist him and guide him into a cloud product. But we're seeing everything, human resources. So, we were fortunately, and this is weird to say, we were blessed when COVID hit. Careful on, make sure those edits are in there. Is we were blessed when COVID hit because healthcare and construction were deemed essential from the beginning. And I don't know about you, I've never met a construction company without an employee. So all of a sudden, employees can't come to the office, can't do this. They're relegated to the job site and job site tracking and metrics. So we saw this overwhelming surge of work from field enablement, work remote enablement, and the largest surge was in HR, how to deal with employees and communicate with employees. And as rules and safety plans and company trainings had to update, then we saw the big push when the payroll protection plan, the PPP tracking and metrics came out. Well, half of the accounting office, at least, or I say accounting, but the back office at least, was working from home or remote desktop. Now, we all know what that looks like from a home environment. So, we really saw no exception to the rule. People wanting to do remote takeoffs from home, like typically estimators are sitting in offices with large plan desks, plans everywhere, and they're not doing things like that from home. And all of a sudden, we had the need for, hey, we need large screen capabilities. Does your software generate in a 4K monitor? It's like, haven't been asked that before. So, those kind of things like, hey, we're putting in 45-inch monitors at our employee's house to do estimates on. It's like, okay, well, let me check. So, everything was kind of thrown up into the air as far as enhancements, technology, remote, and all of that just causes questions, which, puts people into a buying mode, and they may be steered correctly and may not, depending on the sources they reach out to.
Yeah, those are all great points. So where does the on-premise versus cloud solution conversation play into this part of the discussion from your perspective?
Um, Generally speaking, it's a level of comfort of the end user, the client. We have people that, like you have seen, I am sure, that will get every dollar, every penny out of every investment they have ever made. And their office is in their mom's house, and their server is in by their. So we're gonna have people that have that. They want that control of their data. They don't want it in the Googles or all of that. I can tell you from a new customer adoption, it's 2/3 is web-based, and
Okay.
we're seeing a huge uptick in our on-premise base that are start looking for cloud technologies, whether that's a cloud-hosted server or a web-based application. But so far, if you look at it, our install base, our existing clients versus our new clients coming through, it's probably 50-50. Half want their software. They want it on their server. They want control. Their nephew's their IT guy, or maybe they have an entire division. Also, we're seeing a lot of our larger ERP clients, the ones over $1 billion that embraced like Amazon or Microsoft Azure and all that for their self-hosting environment. They have found out that due to data storage requirements, as in how much it costs to store a terabyte data, they're actually moving back to their own local physical servers. So we've seen quite a bit of people that have this huge IT department and PMO office that were all cloud-based that are now bringing their financial applications for security in-house, with ransomware and XYZ out there. So yeah, that's kind of a tricky one, but I would say, probably half and half, needles moving towards cloud. It is definitely, we're in construction, so the needle moves slower than other industries and it's moving towards cloud, but half our clients coming in they have that server they just spent, hey, are we compatible with Windows Server 2022? I just bought it. So the on-prem is still a conversation we're having every day.
Yeah, that's a great insight. I haven't heard it described that way in the past, so I appreciate you giving that detail for sure. So one of the other things that we're seeing, and this is just common in technology in general, but we've seen a lot of mergers and acquisitions and companies, maybe going public or having private equity investments put into their business. How is that having an impact on the end user, the customer at this point?
In our experience, it's actually been a negative experience for the end user. So especially speaking when companies go public, when mergers are happening, this company buys this product and assimilates it into their portfolio. Typically, we're experiencing our customers' dissatisfaction with the merger and starting a buying cycle looking to replace it because they don't feel like they are a customer anymore. They feel like they're a stockholder symbol. So generally speaking, we're not a fan of it. We don't like to see it. We can't stop it, obviously, but our clients are very aware of when it happens. They very much feel it, sense it, know it when their product that they've been on for quite some time has been invested in by venture capital or gone public, because the focus typically does switch from support to new customer attainment.
Interesting. Yeah, psychologically, for sure, I know that the approach would have to be a little bit different.
Yeah,
And so when things are different, then obviously behavior changes too. So, um,
absolutely.
have you seen cases where it became better in the long run for the customer?
No,
It's a long pause.
no,
Okay. All
no,
right. All right.
not better yet. And I'm thinking in my head, and it's not even ERP related. It's directly tied with IPO. So, do they have the capability and possibility of rectifying that and becoming what they were before? Sure. But you're a stock symbol. You have a shareholder. You have a new customer goal. So that's where customers are feeling. What am I paying for now besides NASCAR? Whenever I have a chance, I'll throw that one in there.
I saw that. All right. So how important do you think it is for companies to have that coach? I mean, we use the term trusted advisor. To me, those are kind of the same thing, in their corner when they're making these types of decisions instead of trying to go it alone.
Yeah. I hate to oversimplify it, but with the availability of information these days, the amount of research you can do and educate yourself on as a buyer prior to reaching out to a software publisher or a partner is great. I would say as soon as you realize you're not the smartest person in the conversation about the software, reach out to a business partner. Reach out to a business partner that is not with a publisher and get their honest opinion. So as soon as you don't know, as soon as you start guessing as a team, because everybody's doing this as a committee of buyers, a committee of functions and features that they need, that they're evaluating, as soon as they realize that they're not the smartest person in the room when it comes to software, which may happen day one and it may happen the last day, but at some point it is always good to ask someone that does know the software, does know the actual companies that are putting out the software, and has experience with all of them with clients. So I would say pretty much anywhere from first day to last day, as long as the question is being asked of someone, and whether that's a business partner like myself. A lot of CPAs will also guide you in a good direction because they have experience with software providers. But yeah, as soon as you know you're not the smartest person in the room, ask for help. There are companies that help you from point A all the way through, like James Benham Company does as well. There's software selection companies that help put together those things. But yeah, for us, you could call us the second something doesn't smell right in your current system.
Interesting. So, are there some just general bullets that you would say the company should be looking to outsource or bring in professionals for these types of services? I mean, there a few core steps or critical pieces that they should really bring in help outside to do.
Um, yeah, I would say, well, really documenting workflows and processes. So they know their current processes.
a few. Are there any other areas that you would recommend companies bring in a professional from outside to help with?
Yeah, especially when you're working with multiple systems, your organization could be diverse. You might manufacture sheet metal and install it as HVAC duct.
Mm,
So anytime you're working with seemingly disparate systems or silos of data, you might want to get someone that is a data aggregator, someone that works good with database management. You might also look at something, again, let's go back to what's in Microsoft Office, Word. So, how many people have forms in the world, right? How many people are tracking equipment and assets? Things we haven't talked about. We mentioned timekeeping, but time is people and equipment and productivity. So, those kind of functions as well. Anytime that something comes up for us that is directly related to a construction company, that's where we feel like we're going to be the most influential in helping is leveraging our relationships with people. But within their organization, outside of, let's say, a construction thing, I would say anything that would make you think twice about spending money, you should probably ask someone about it.
love that. So you're in that regard, you become a financial advisor of sorts, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, there are times I've lost due to a bulldozer.
Huh.
I've lost due to an F-350. Someone said, "Hey, my superintendent needs a brand new truck. His truck just died. We can't buy your software because I have to buy a new crew truck." Those are real world things. Like, you don't get upset by it, and you move on. But sometimes people come to you and say, "Hey, maybe they don't have the truck. We're looking at hiring 2 new people. We're going to need 2 new trucks, but we're also not able to track trucks and equipment, software, people, and equipment."
Mhm.
That's a fun conversation to be in, weighing personnel versus software, especially when you own a company that is built around supporting software. So, but that's where we have to honestly say, hey, now is the time to do your software, or now is the time to invest in the equipment, and let's look in 6 months. We do a lot of referrals back to ourselves, like, hey, not right now, we get it, but let's talk in 6 months when it's a better time.
Yeah, and you mentioned custom reports earlier, so that maybe they have the right tools in place. They just need better reporting, and you could help advise them of such a thing, right?
Sure, sure. And we do custom reports. I should, for me, I guess I'm oversimplifying when I say professional services. But yeah, that records, includes dashboards, reports, inquiries, system customizations, re-implementations. We do key changes when someone says, "Oh, I want my job numbers to be 2 digits longer than they ever were." We do all of that as well. We do frontline tier 1 through what's the highest? I don't know, tier 5 support. We definitely cover all the bases on that. Typically, when it comes to things like reports, if it's a one-off report, we're more than happy to create it for you. If you come to us with 2 or 3 reports, we really want to train you on how to create your own reports, because where there's 2, there's 12. If there's 1, there might only ever be the 1, right? But if there's 2, there's 12. So we're typically want you to spend your money on you and get the reports done, and then be able to self-serve after that.
Those are all great points. So you mentioned, and we hear this commonly in a lot of these conversations, just by industry standards, construction has always been one of the laggards in technology adoption, especially as it relates to mobility and cloud solutions, et cetera. What should companies be looking to spend as far as a budget on, and pick an area, but just on innovation and improvement, just to keep up with competition and also to stay up with leveraging the latest tools that are available for them to enjoy?
Oh yeah, that's all of it. So the common average to reinvest in your company is 20 to 30% of your profits. So spread across both technology, personnel, physical well-being, office improvements, all that. Typically, I would say 3 to 5%. 3 to 5% in technology. That could be low and that could be high, depending if 3% for a $5 million a year company versus a $5 billion a year company. It looks like a whole different set of commas. But 3 to 5% typically is what we would do. There are softwares that are based on revenue, and the volume and size of your company. And if you said, okay, well, those are a percentage point, a whole percent of that. Well, I covered you at 3 to 5. You just saved some money.
so many areas and angles and rabbit holes we could go down in this conversation, but I think just to summarize, what I guess would you share with the audience that you think is an innovation that companies are really enjoying and that you would recommend that they take a look at if they're not? And then on the flip side, what's something that you think is a little more hype and fluff and maybe not worth their time at this time?
Sure. So two easy ones for me, actually. So let me start with the last one, because if that's going to be our last question, I don't want it to end on a negative. So let me start with OCR technology for invoicing. It's overhyped. It's super expensive. It's unreliable, and so far is unproven in a constructive environment. So be wary of anybody trying to sell you OCR, reading invoices line item by line item. So that's the one that I have not seen a clear winner on yet. As far as positive functionality, so like I mentioned earlier, with the pandemic and everything, with the work from home, and we saw the surge in people needing HR software, managing the documents and the processes and all of that were all done on clipboards, paper in the office. Out of that, now that we're a couple years into this bad boy, everybody going through open enrollment. Open enrollment is like 3 clicks for an administrator now. You don't have to do the meetings. You don't have to do all the plan. Like, it's super easy. So when I say coolest, careful, I'm talking about software here. I would say the most advantageous, beneficial thing that I have seen our client, like 100% of our clients that have this feature, is the open enrollment and benefits messaging feature of HR. It is 100% self-serve. Employees do it all themselves, multilingual, etc. It uploads directly to your accounting software for payroll deductions, notifies your benefits enrollment, does all that. And again, almost any HR solution. So I'm not even saying a name, just HR solutions in general. People are going through and doing workers' comp audits. And now, and for anybody in construction that's watching this, the workers' comp renewal is probably your single largest invoice that you cut outside of a material invoice per year. It's a very, very large prepaid invoice. And that typically takes 3 to 5 days, if not longer. Right now, with an HR software, it's like click, click. That's it. So I would say the HR benefits through the digitization and cloud ability. That's probably the single coolest. And we're also seeing a whole lot of investment in that. Workforce management, obviously, with everything that happened, anything around workforce and resource management.
Love it. Great insights and kind of a new look at things from some of the conversations we've had in the past. So thank you for sharing that.
Sure, absolutely.
So tell me this: what's the one thing that you hope that the listeners take away from our conversation today?
I think really just that partners like us and people like you as well, that we're actually here to help. Whether you buy software or buy our services, I can say exactly from this myself. No matter what you guys are going through as a company, someone else has gone through it. I don't mean to trivialize it, but we've heard it before. That's why we're good at what we do. Other than that, I would just say that, it's been an honor having you on me here and getting able to talk to you and all that. But other than that, I would just say, don't be scared to reach out to someone. Don't be scared to pick up a phone and call a partner, get a referral from one of your competitors.
Yeah. That's great advice. So to wrap up on a couple of personal questions. So what's something that you're grateful for in your professional life?
Oh man, right now I'm grateful for a ton right now. I have a great team, and I'm the practice director of our foundation team, which is Sage 100, Sage 300, and Sage Estimating. And man, we just had our group meeting yesterday, and I really just have a great team supporting me from a sales and consulting side. People. Anybody that says we're doing great in that division, it has nothing to do with me. It's all them.
Awesome. Okay. All right. I like that. Tell me this then. Last question. What is Tony Merry's superpower?
Besides, I have the ability to not sleep. All that. Oh man, if I had real or I wish I had superpower.
You choose. Let's start with real.
Yeah. I can speed read. That's probably the coolest thing I can do.
All right.
I'm not a man of a lot of tricks. So
Cool. Well, you are a good friend, and I've appreciated having the conversation today. It's been fun to talk with you a little bit further, and we'll have to do this again down the road.
Thank you for joining us today on the Mobile Workforce Podcast, sponsored by About Time Technologies and WorkMax. If you liked the conversation we had today, or were able to learn anything new or helpful, please make sure to follow us on our WorkMax page on LinkedIn and on Instagram at WorkMax_. And subscribe to the show on iTunes or your preferred podcast platform so you will never miss another insightful episode. Also, if you enjoyed the podcast, please leave us a 5-star rating and review and share the show with your friends and colleagues. Your support means the world to us and will allow us to continue providing impactful information with others looking to improve their results in their business and, in turn, their life.